Good evening, everyone. Welcome. My name is Tabitha. We're going to get started in about 2 or 3 minutes here, but before we get started, I just wanted to bring your attention. Is that very echoey to you guys too? Is there feedback? A little bit. Norm's working on it. While they work on the audio, you'll see behind me there's this lovely QR code up on the screen. That's for a really exciting contest we're holding today. What it is we have 5 prizes, and those 5 winners of the prizes today will be getting a professional headshot session with the lovely Magpie Photography at the back here. So make sure before you leave today, you scan that code, you fill out the little form, and then tomorrow we'll be notifying the winners of the contest. So thank you so much, Megan and the Magpie team, for pulling that together for us tonight. We will be back in exactly 2 minutes. How are you?
I'm only half serious. I mean, I am serious about all institutions are under fire. I am serious, but I just mean you can't just be part of the problem. One, you have to be part of the solution. And I think anything to engage in community is part of the solution. So,
because my committee gave me a hard time about having the police officers speak because they were afraid that women attending might have had a bad experience. They might be stressed out. But, again, I think even I hate, when she called my phone, I'm like, Waterloo Regional Police, this can't be good. That's my first thought, right? So that's what we think about.
I wonder if that's and is that chair being utilized? I don't know. Nope. Yay. Thank you so much. I'll go on this side.
Perfect.
So
Okay.
not blocking anyone.
Your timing's perfect.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. Nancy, I've met. We have not met.
I'm Shiva.
Shiva, nice to meet you.
Wanda, nice to see you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
My name's Fabiola.
Fabiola, nice to see you.
We all know each other.
Oh my God.
I only.
Excuse me. No, I'm just going to snag
we
this
don't
for now.
want that.
Yes, please.
everyone. Am I on yet? Nope, not yet. Good evening, everyone. I know I'm interrupting the best part of the event, which is the networking, but feel free to find yourself a seat. There are a couple towards the front here. I know nobody likes to sit in the front, but we're front-sitting people today. Again, my name's Tabitha Laverty. I'm the VP of Marketing and External Relations at the Accelerator Center. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. She Talks Tech is one of our absolute favorite events that we run. Once per quarter, it's our opportunity to bring together the women in our community and really provide some opportunities to connect, to learn from each other, and hopefully to inspire you to pursue your technology or entrepreneurial dreams tonight. A few people I need to thank. So first of all, thank you very much to our good friends from Gowlings. They're sponsoring this evening's event and a number of other events that we do at the AC. They're an incredible legal partner, and we're just really grateful for their support tonight. I'd also like to thank our AC team. If you're on AC team, put your hand up real quick. Just give a wave. Really amazing team, guys. It takes each and every one of those people to make an event like this happen. So if you're looking for someone to connect with, find an AC team member. We'd love to get to know you a little bit better. So tonight I'm excited to talk about imposter syndrome, and I have this incredible panel of highly successful women who I can almost promise you has all dealt with, overcome, and possibly still is dealing with imposter syndrome. So this is a really important topic to bring forward to the forefront of conversation, but also to put out on the table and have conversation about how do we overcome these things, how do we talk about these things, how do we support each other and other women through these things. So I'm gonna pop into my chair here. Megan told me not to wear a dress. I didn't listen. So here we are. So I think we'll get started by allowing you guys all to introduce yourselves, talk a little bit about who you are, why you're here tonight, and what you're hoping to impart wisdom on folks.
Okay.
I'll start with you, Angela.
Hello. Hi, my name is Angela Larragabell. I'm the Senior Vice President of Founder Services at Communitech. I've worked for Communitech for about 12 years in a variety of roles. Let's see. I started on the peer-to-peer team. For those of you that are familiar with that, it's kind of core to what Communitech does, and it was a really awesome opportunity for me to learn firsthand how we impact our members. So that was a really cool journey to go on. And then had the opportunity to work in a variety of roles as the Founder Services team grew and scaled, and now I have the privilege of leading that team. I'm here tonight because yes, I too suffer from imposter syndrome, as I'm sure a lot of you do, and so I wanted to share some of my thoughts and learnings, and hopefully we can have a good conversation.
Amazing.
Hi, everyone. Hello. Hi, my name is Kate Chen. I lead growth at PontoSense. I am a fellow Golden Hawk. I love Waterloo and supporting this community. And for my career, I've primarily been focused a lot on talent acquisition. I've worked in and helped scale a lot of really incredible tech startups here in Canada, and helping grow their teams from very, very small stage Series A to Series D, and working with some of the very impressive tech leaders around the world. And imposter syndrome is definitely something that I did not know I was dealing with for most of my adult life until maybe a few years ago. And it's something that I am very, very passionate about speaking on, because I feel like the more we talk about it, the more people can understand what it's about, how you, I don't know if it's necessarily overcoming it, but really learning how to deal with it and as you evolve in your life too. So I hope you all learned something from us today.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Radhika Vaidyanathan. I have to actually remind myself, as all these ladies were introducing them, I'm like telling myself, breathe, just breathe, right? So I am a lawyer. I'm a partner at Gowling WLG, which is a international full-service law firm. My practice is primarily in the areas of corporate commercial, corporate finance, and M&A. I also work with several startups in the community, both in their capacity as a legal advisor, but also as a mentor, both formal and informal. And I'm really proud board member of the AC, so I'm here in my capacity supporting the AC in this great event. And for sure, this is a topic that almost all of us can relate to, deal with. Kate and I were talking on a daily basis. So hopefully we can share some ideas and thoughts and learn from each other today.
Okay, hi everyone, my name's Susie. I guess I'm also an entrepreneur. So I'm CEO of Advise to Rise, so an HR boutique consulting firm here in KW. My story is I'm from London, go Stangs. Sorry about that. Yeah. Anyways, so went to Western. My career was very international, so I've worked a lot both on the business side as well as on the HR side. Started off at 3M, like a home of innovation, customer service frontline, moved to Europe for most of my 20s and worked in finance and audit around the world with General Electric. And then came back, to domesticate myself, have a family based here in Kitchener. Then worked for about 10 years with Manulife Financial. Might be some people from here, especially having our local headquarters here. So did that and worked across different business roles as well as on the HR side. And then the last 5 years, I've been on the tech side. So I was chief people for Applyboard, and then I was chief people for Clearco. So two different tech unicorns here from the Canadian economy. And so now I'm Susie Entrepreneur. So I'm excited to talk here. I love the AC. I love everything we're doing here, and it's been amazing to meet even the fellow speakers already. So yeah, looking forward to hearing everyone.
Amazing. So we got a small number of questions we're going to ask these lovely ladies, mostly because we want to save lots of time for questions from the audience. So there will be lots of time to ask questions, but I always like to get a sense of who's in the room. So put your hand up if you are an entrepreneur. Amazing. Put your hand up if you work in tech in some other capacity. Woo, that's the most of you. Great, we love that. Put your hand up if you are currently, you'd say like, yeah, imposter syndrome, that's me. Loud and proud. Put your hand up if you're like, I've got this, I've mastered it, I have overcome imposter syndrome, I'm the expert.
You should be up here.
Yeah? Oh, a little, there's a couple, maybe a little bit. Tessa, I saw you. And put your hand up if you had imposter syndrome, overcame it, and now have it again. All right, that's a totally legitimate place to be in. So that's wonderful, guys. I think the aim is to get more of you in that middle section here tonight. So I'll start with Susie. How do you differentiate between healthy self-doubt and imposter syndrome?
Yeah, that's a good question, especially after your Q&A. So I was thinking about this, and I think everyone has self-doubt, right? And if you think about like when you try something new, you don't know how to do it. Like if you think you know everything, like there's always so much more to know. So there's always self-doubt, and there's always a good reason to feel imposter syndrome. So I actually think it's normal. You should feel like you can't do something, or else you're not stretching yourself. So that's my view on imposter syndrome, that you have to kind of lean into it and know that when you are going through it, like, when you're starting something new or exploring something, it's okay to talk about it, right? And say like, man, I don't know what I'm doing. Like there's so many times in my career where I've been like, I have no idea how to do this. This happens still every day, right? But it's like feeling okay about it. You're like, whatever, like I don't know isn't a viable answer, right? When you're doing something, and it's okay to feel like you don't know it. That means you're growing, right? And you still have so much more potential, and you can do it. So that's just some opening thoughts on that.
I love the response that I don't know is a totally legitimate answer. I think oftentimes people, particularly as you're coming up and you're aspiring towards a leadership position, you look and you say, oh, they know everything. My leader knows everything, or hopefully you think that. And the truth is that oftentimes, they don't know either. They're doing the best that they can. And I think being okay with saying that I don't know is a great first step.
Yeah, just as an add-on to that, when I ran teams, I always had kind of, I guess today you'd call this like a team contract, right? Like the rules of engagement. I always had as one of the top things on, like the top 5 things I do with my team is I don't know is a viable answer. Yeah. So you can set the tone too in your team for this to open it up so people feel okay, like they don't expect you. And it's better to say you don't know if you don't know, because it only leads to trouble, right? Usually when you start going down the ugly path of guessing all the way down. So anyways, just throwing that out as like a leader hack.
Amazing. Angela, I guess same question for you as well.
First of all, I like big Susie energy. This is awesome. I like the I don't know. I want to be you when I grow up. So I had the privilege of talking to one of my colleagues and friends about this, and she offered some sage advice or insight, which was language really matters. So think about the language we use. So it led to a discussion around, like, what do we mean? What are the two definitions? For me, when I think about healthy self-doubt, it's like I'm not feeling stuck. I might be scared. I might feel a little bit of discomfort. Maybe it's something I'm trying new, but I'm still moving forward. If I think about imposter syndrome, I can feel like such anxiety that I'm not able to move forward, and that's not a healthy place to be, obviously. So the more I reflected on that, the more I thought, for me, the way imposter syndrome shows up is maybe a little bit tied to perfectionism. I think a lot of people that suffer from that are sort of high achievers, and that can be a really slippery slope, right? When we start to compare ourselves to others that outwardly look like they're very confident and capable and they have it all together and they know all the answers, and you think, man, they said something really smart in that meeting and I didn't know that. You can start a lot of self-talk that really gets you in a place that's not healthy or is sort of negative. So the other thing I reflected on was it's really easy to dismiss sort of our innate skills. Like the things that we're really naturally good at, you're like, well, everybody knows how to do that. Well, no, not necessarily. So, take the time to reflect on, like, what are the things you bring to the table, celebrate those, acknowledge those, and then it's okay to be vulnerable. Like, find somebody that you can be vulnerable with, take action, talk to that person and say, like, I feel a little bit uncomfortable about this because I guarantee you other people are suffering from it too, and they feel a little bit uncertain. Then there's a little bit of, like, validation in your feelings, but they will also probably challenge your assumptions about how you feel about yourself. They probably do not perceive you the same way that you perceive or you think others perceive you. So it's a little good exercise to do a gut check to say, actually, others kind of think I got it together, so maybe I can fake it a little bit longer.
Yeah, that's actually a really great kind of segue to our next question around checking in with other people. So would love to hear from you, maybe Kate, around what's the role that mentorship and support networks play in helping people navigate imposter syndrome?
A huge role. I think there are a lot of circumstances in my life that I don't think I would have been able to get through maybe as well as I did without the right, or not even the right, like just some form of mentorship or support from someone else. I like to think of myself as the fact that I have the ability to like hype myself up when I need to, but most times that's not the case. And in those moments where you have some or a lot of self-doubt, what I actually started doing maybe a few years ago was anytime I would get positive feedback, positive support, some kind of recognition for my work, just some kind of written communication that someone has my back, I would take a screenshot and have a folder on my phone of these things, because it's really difficult when you're in these valleys of self-doubt where you have to actively seek now some kind of support from someone. Maybe it's easy to do that with a friend, but it's really difficult in a professional setting to be like, hey, Angela, you want to hype me up? Like, I'm kind of, it's like a little uncomfortable. And oftentimes we kind of, are stuck in our own minds of like, oh, I don't want to bother this person. I can't really seek that out. And so keeping some of these things set aside for a rainy day has really helped me come back to it, and knowing that, once upon a time, even if it was just last week, this is how this person really supported me or saw me. And it's a really good reminder of myself at that time. And what's really interesting, when I started doing this, I found imposter syndrome in a very different way, where I was like, wow, I cannot believe this person, like, I respect them so much, I can't believe that they said this about me. And it's like, okay, Kate, come on, like, I deserve to be, to hear those things. I earned this recognition. It's not by fluke that this person who's so pedigreed and so respected, like, I'm so lucky. Like, no, Kate, like, imposter syndrome aside, like, you earned that, you deserve that. And so for myself, it's really just a good full circle moment sometimes to be like, okay, yes, like, I earned these relationships. I'm not lucky because I know X person or Y person. It's, I've built this path for myself to have these relationships, and I can lean on them when I need to. So it's a full circle thing for me.
That's great. Radhika, I'm interested to hear from you on that question, specifically in the context of you're an immigrant, you're a woman in a large corporate environment. What's the role that mentorship has played for you?
A huge role, for sure. Thank you for sharing and asking that question. I want to start off with what Angela said, right? There is strength in vulnerability. And that's how my whole career has shaped, from me just putting myself out there. And I want to take you back 20 years ago, which is when I moved to Canada. I was working at a law firm in India. I had a career. I left all of that. Marriage brought me romance. So I was here. I followed my husband here. When I came here, I knew nobody. I had no friends. I had no family. I had no network. Other than my husband, there was not a single individual I knew in the community. So I am a child of the support I got from this community. And I'll say, so there was a program that was run by the Government of Canada through City. It was called New Canadians Program. And they would help new immigrants just figure out the work marketplace here. And it would start with even little things like how to leave a voicemail. So I was trained, because in my culture, that you wouldn't leave voicemail in a professional setting. So I learned that, and then those were the times of yellow pages. I'm dating myself. I took the yellow pages. I ever wanted to be a lawyer, so I took the yellow pages. I listed 10 lawyers. That training that I got at the New Canadian program, where I saw other people like me having relocated, having to establish, that was a support that was working for me, because every time I would get depressed, I would see a doctor from Romania who's trying to start a career here, and I'm like, okay, if he can do it, I can do it too, right? So that was support, and then from there, that yellow page courage, I just cold called one of my colleagues and best friends to date. I called her and I said, I'm a foreign law qualified lawyer. How do I make it here? And she said, do you want to come see me for lunch? I met her for lunch, and then we kept in touch throughout my sort of, as I was trying to re-qualify myself. And that was a community connection. She became my informal mentor. And then I started articling at Gowling. I just want to share this experience because I want to sort of show how there's been people, not necessarily, it's not like a one-size-fits-all, right? Mentors can come, supports can come in different shapes and sizes. It may not be just one person doing everything for you. And so when I went to Gowling for an articling position, after I qualified myself as a lawyer here, they had 4 students, and they said, we can only hire 1. So I was actually told that I wasn't being hired back. And there was a senior partner I worked with when I was an articling student. So the yellow page courage, so the voicemail courage to the yellow page courage, I just walked into his office and I said, I really enjoyed working here. This is the type of environment I want to work in. So how do I go about it? Can you tell me what I should do if I want to work in a law firm? What is it that I need to be doing over here? He said, have you gone and talked to the office managing partner? Why don't you go just tell him what you're interested in, so that if not now, if an opportunity comes down the road, he'll keep you in mind. I had never said even hello to the office managing partner. I'm like the student who has no experience, no sort of position of power. So I walk into his office, and I put it out there. I said, I know this is awkward. I know you don't know me, but I'm here because I just want to understand what is it that I can do if I want to come back to a big law firm. So that was, again, like me just putting myself out there. And then apparently after I left, he sent an email to all the other partners and said, why are we not hiring this person? And that's how I landed my job, and it's 13 years since. So all that to just say my experiences and the people I have met have shaped my career, have shaped my journey, both personal and professional. And even just being in this room, right? We're here because we want to support each other and learn from each other. So mentorship and support, it's there. People are willing to help, people are available to help, and that's how you pay it forward. We pay it forward down the road. So, sorry, that's a long-winded answer for that.
That was a great answer. No, I love that. I love the theme of bravery amongst everything you guys are talking about is really self-advocacy and getting a little bit out of that comfort zone that, we're told we should be quiet and wait our turn when actually what really works is advocating for yourself. So I think that's great. Another thing that I think is a bit of a misconception around imposter syndrome is that it's only something that young people early in their career deal with. And I think, we're, 5 successful women sitting on the stage today that can tell you that that's definitely not true. So I'd love to hear from a couple of you around how has your journey with imposter syndrome changed from your early career to maybe where you're at today? And maybe I'll start with you, Angela, on that one.
Sure. Full disclosure, my hands are sweaty. I'm still nervous. So I would say earlier in my career when I was younger, I think I labored under the assumption that I was the only one that felt this way, right? I don't know if we were having these kinds of conversations, but I felt like maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the only one who's anxious and feels uncertain. The older I got and the more opportunity I had to talk to other folks, the more I realized it's not just me, and that it's pretty normal. But the other thing I think is, especially earlier in your career, but throughout your whole career, you're going to do things that you've never done before. You're going to try new things. And whenever we try new things, usually the first couple of times we're not very good at them. And sometimes we fail. And that's okay. So I guess my message is, like, as I've gotten older, I've normalized failure a little bit and embraced it and tried to flip it a little bit and think about, like, it's really a reflection of where you are now, but that doesn't mean it's where you're going to be forever. And what did you learn from that? And I have some members of my team here, and I think they'll echo that. I talk to them all the time and say it's okay to fail. It's all right if we fail, as long as we don't do the same thing over and over. But if we learn something from it, then that's cool. That means it's a growth opportunity, and we're going to take that growth and we're going to move on. This one I'm still working on, which is to be kind and compassionate in our inner voice. And so it's a good reminder to talk to ourselves the way we would talk to. So this table here is my friends. They're awesome. They came out to support me. So the way I would talk to my friend Jane or my friend Susan or my friend Emily, talk to yourself in that tone, because it's easy to think, why did you do that? That was silly. That was stupid. I would never, ever say that to my friend Ellen or my friend Beth. So speak to yourself, practice self-compassion, speak to yourself in that tone of voice. And if you catch yourself not doing it, like, breathe and try again, because it's a learned skill just like everything else.
Amazing. Great advice. Kate, your thoughts on the same question?
So when I got my first job, like working in-house as a recruiter, I was working at Coho, this fintech company that was really on the rise in growth and users and a lot of really exciting stuff. And when I got that job, I was like 2 years into my career. I was flabbergasted that they gave me this opportunity. I was like, I don't know what they saw in me. I don't know, like, I've never done this before. And so I really carried this feeling of, like, heavy imposter syndrome in almost every conversation for quite a long time. I was, in meetings now with CEO and founders and VC partners, like, talking to them like I was the expert in talent, and I was like, I don't know why they're asking me these questions, like, and I found myself a lot of the time, speaking of language and how important it is, I was always really afraid to say what I myself, like, thought. I would always say, like, oh, why don't we try this, or, we thought of this idea, and it was not in this, there's another issue of, women not being owners of the things that we accomplished, but on the other side of, I was really afraid to own things, and that really, like, negatively impacted a lot of my self-confidence, and that was very self-inflicting, in terms of my own language. And, as I've experienced a few more things in my career, I still catch myself thinking, or, like, that's, like, my go-to way of communicating, but I've tried to actively talk to myself and say, I want to do this, or this is what I know is the right thing to do, or I researched this, like, let's go with this. And I stopped also saying, I think we should do this, and, like, there's, like, this soft, like, pillowy thing that I think a lot of women do where it's like, this is just my idea, I think we should do this, but it's totally fine if you don't want to. And okay, so thankfully we all agree. And so for me, it's like, again, like, building more of that self-confidence, I say, I want to do this. Like, this is what I've researched. There's also power in having all the facts and coming in with a lot of confidence. But for me, today, I still struggle with the same, like, oh, like, I don't really want to say this, or maybe it's going to be the wrong idea, or maybe, the reaction's not going to be what I think it's going to be. But at least if I'm wrong, I know that I put forth, like, my optimal level of confidence, and it's not a confidence issue anymore. It's more maybe do a bit of research or let's just talk about it, or whatever the case. So I think how things have evolved is not necessarily me not thinking those things anymore, but really how to deal with them and just being a lot more proactive in how I'm presenting myself, not to make other people feel more confident about my skills, but really like for me to feel confident about myself. And there's a lot of other retrospective things that happen after, depending on what happens, but those two things I really think have helped me work a little bit more off the imposter syndrome. So
yeah, that's great. So seeing as, more than half the people in this room put their hand up and said, imposter syndrome, that's me, would love to hear from you, Susie, around what's your advice for people who are really feeling this right now? What advice would you give them?
Yep. I have, a couple thoughts on this. And I think when you have imposter syndrome, it's because you feel uncomfortable, right? You feel like you can't do something, you don't know how to do it. The best thing to do is to learn. If you want to get more confident, double down on learning what you don't know, right? Tell them, I don't know. Ask for help. Spend 1,000,000 hours learning whatever you need to learn to get out of that funky feeling, right? Like that is my best advice for you, because it's the only way to get past it is to walk through it. You need to go through, right? And around this question, when I was preparing, I don't know why, but I was thinking about this story about, and this is just because just thinking from a female perspective, and this could be from male as well, but I worked once on a leadership team with another woman. And whenever something would go wrong, I'd be like, oh, I did whatever, and I'd be like, oh my God, blah, 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 right? And then she would say, oh, do you think it's because you're female? And I would say, no, nope. That never, ever crossed my mind. I thought it was because I made a mistake, or I did this, or I did that, And then, another one would come up, and I'd be like, oh, this is what happened, da, 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 oh my gosh, so I'm doing this to fix it. She'd be like, oh, do you think that's because you're female? And I'm like, no, this never crossed my mind. And then I thought, I thought about, why is it that every time something happens and I'm working through it and, I get feedback or someone's tough with me, every time she would think, it's because she's female, and it would never even cross my mind. It's because she worked in an environment for, 10 years before she got to this job that was very male-dominated, or it doesn't even matter, but, just dominated in a place that made her feel bad about doing things, where she actually felt, self-conscious about it all the time. And then when I reflected back on my career, I thought, oh, well, I was actually, pretty lucky, and maybe, just had the happy path of I picked companies with, high integrity and leaders, right? That really would just support me in anything. There's lots of times that things would happen, but I always felt safe to say, you know what, I don't agree with that, or, oh, I made a huge mistake, or wait, we need to stop. We're not sure at this point, right? This was never a question in any function I worked in. Didn't matter if it was finance, if it was customer service, if it was HR, anything. I always had that. So I think another piece that I will say, if you want to really build up your confidence, is surround yourself with nutritious people. I was reminded of a story in my undergrad that we had Professor Jim Erskine at Ivy at Western, and that's what he told us. As a 20-year-old, someone told me that, and I thought, this is the best, really good life advice, right? And
Yeah.
And if you have nutritious people around you, if you build that community and everybody that where you never do anything yourself, right? No one goes it alone, right? So pick wisely on who you're working with and who you're spending your time with. And that will help you with your imposter syndrome, right? And just putting the time in to do the work.
Amazing. That's great advice. Radhika, same question for you.
I want to follow on what Susie said, right? You don't have to do this alone. In that, find a buddy, because again, your support can come at different ages and stages. It could be a senior, a superior who's been there, done that, so you can actually, get their wisdom and from their learnings, where you don't have to make the same mistakes that they did. You can learn from their wisdom. Find somebody who's your peer, who's going through exactly what you're going through, so you can be each other's support system. That's worked a lot for me, because then then there's somebody who's telling you whether it's me, or am I going in this right path, or am I just in this hamster wheel spinning? You have to get out of your head. The minute you know that you're going down that rabbit hole where you're panicking, you're freezing, you're thinking oh my gosh, I'm not good enough, or that discomfort, stop and take action. Don't let yourself immerse in the thought. Just step out of it, but start taking action. And whatever that action might be, whether it is talking to somebody who's there, or whether it is your physical health or mental health, whatever it might be, and you come back to it. You can come back to it, but never let yourself get just caught up in that moment, caught up in that stress of it. Go ahead, Susie, you had something to add. Yeah.
I gave you a thumbs up. You know, online you can have them fly up. I gave you a physical thumbs up. I was like, yes. That is, I'm so action oriented that, like I said, you have to just work through it. I honestly think that's all you can do. Like, because if you take action, you're actually moving forward.
Yes.
Right? Versus talking about it, debating with everyone. You could do that to diffuse it. You can like get it out of your system. I'm also very verbal. But I think that taking action is your number one advice for any of this. Yeah. No, really good. 100% agree. Let's go.
Amazing.
Boom.
Yeah.
Boom.
We love that. Yeah, so that's again, you guys are segueing beautifully tonight. I love it. Really interesting thing that I find about imposter syndrome is we're all having conversation tonight specifically about women. This is certainly something men deal with as well, but I think women feel it more intensely, and it's the assumption that your imposter syndrome is real. And what I mean by that is that you actually aren't yet qualified, and that it's coming from a place of you're uncomfortable because you've never done it before. And sometimes it's not the case. Sometimes we're uncomfortable just because we're uncomfortable, or because we see other people doing things in a different way, and we think the way I'm showing up isn't the same way that this male leader shows up, therefore the way I'm doing it is wrong. And I think leadership and having great mentors plays a big part in that. So our last official question of the panel before we take your questions, we'd love to hear from all four of you on what do you think the role of leaders is in bringing up this next generation of women who ideally don't even have to think about this?
I can start. I think it is to model good behavior. Right, I'm a big Brené Brown fan. If others are Brené Brown fans, it's all about vulnerability and leading with vulnerability. And I like it's okay to say I don't know. That I say that at work sometimes because that's okay. And showing people that it's a safe place, right? And we're all learning and growing together. So trying to practice self-compassion, modeling good behavior, and being vulnerable are a good place to start to nurture other folks, so that hopefully they can bypass some of this.
It's a loaded question.
Sorry.
There's a few things that I think about when it just comes to like I'm an oversharer. You know, I think as a leader, it's important. Like obviously, like a healthy balance of oversharing, but I think it's always interesting coming into new teams or when someone new comes into your team and people like we all have this feeling of like always needing to be on, you know, and always needing to have this kind of persona at work where, you know, I don't have problems, you know, my background is also always clean and, you know, put together and my hair always looks great and it's, you know, that's not real life. And, you know, there's a beautiful thing that happens when leaders can share about their failures or things that are really challenging for them, because it just opens this beautiful window for the rest of your team to be like, oh, my manager deals with this, or wow, I'm so happy that, you know, they're open about that, because it just provides a little bit more comfort for people to just be more of themselves, because it is very unnatural to not fail and to not have challenges. So I find that the more you lean into that, the more people can feel more comfortable, and the more trust and honesty can really be built in that kind of relationship. And again, like men, women, or, you know, whatever the kind of relationships you have with folks around in your leadership team, it just should be the example, because it is not normal to just be on all the time. And, you know, like, just be yourself, and that comes with some valleys too.
That's great.
I think being a great leader is extremely important, because great leaders make great teams, and great teams are what truly contribute to this ecosystem and the community we live in. So it has a broader sort of impact than just me, my team, right? So absolutely. And then when I have folks come to me and say, because we are all, I mean, we are a group of just 40 lawyers in this office, for example, right? We are doing practically the same thing. And everybody feels like, oh my gosh, how is it that that person is able to do this well? Or why am I struggling with this? Or whatever it is. So for us, when the younger lawyers come and talk to me, I have to always remind them that everybody's trajectory is very different. Just because they had a journey that made it in 5 years doesn't mean yours have to be. So give yourself grace. And so I think it's important to also be gracious leaders and compassionate leaders. And ergo, I think it just translates down to building a stronger community.
Great.
So, yeah, if you want to be a really great leader and, help avoid imposter syndrome, I think you need to talk to your team, right? Like, it starts with like one-on-ones. You go into a one-on-one, ask people, what are you working on? How's that going? Anything blocking you, right? And take the time if someone's doing something new to actually do it with them. Like, I don't think this happens very often anymore. In the yesteryears when I started working, I used to sit in a cubicle next to everyone else, right? And then if I didn't know how to do something, someone would see me obviously like stunned, sitting there, scrambling, you know what I mean? It was very obvious that I didn't know what to do, right? And then I'd be like, where's the book? Or like, we had paper, right? We would be looking to do things, right? And someone would come over, lean over you and be like, oh, you just like do this and you do that. And then you'd be like, oh, thanks, right? And then you're off you go. And today with hybrid and virtual work teams, like, I think you cannot underestimate that so many people have started their job virtually. When we talk about connections, I follow this person online, Andreas, that talks about human connections. And, before like COVID, it used to be if you could imagine like a mapping of people and it was just like so many lines crossing each other, right? Like millions of connections, right? And today it's like on average 3. So you start virtually, it's like your boss. Then you start meeting people on your team, really you don't feel that connected, right? So it's easy to get into the place where you don't even know what you're supposed to be doing. So you need to be brave yourself, but you also, and ask questions and own that, but the leaders need to be more proactive in their communication. So, and spend the time to, and it might be drudgery. I think with me, I've worked with people who like to work asynchronously a lot, like probably a lot of you here, and I will be like, no, we're spending an hour together, and we're going to go through this step by step, right? The disgusting feeling, but you're setting someone free by doing that as a leader, right? Because, you're always going to learn something. You'll always get better. You'll improve anything you're doing by doing it together. So anyways, I leave you with that piece.
Amazing. Well, we really want to hear from you guys. Megan at the back here has this super fun tossable microphone. You don't have to toss it, but we highly encourage you to toss it because it's way more fun that way. So Megan, I don't know if we have any questions from the folks online first. Maybe we start there.
So I will take a question from online. So this is to the whole panel, including you, Tabitha. In what ways do societal expectations and stereotypes contribute to imposter syndrome for women?
Oh, that's just a little tiny question. Whoever you are online, thanks for that. Anybody really want to go there just right out the gate?
I can start. I think there's a lot of I think different answers that we could all package up, right? And talk about all the different reasons. And I think, Tabitha, you touched on some earlier, right, when you're framing some of the questions. But I think another thing to think about is that it's talked about all the time and platformed. So we have to be careful of that. Women this and women that, where everybody is individual and there's considerations, if you're orange, if you're purple, you know what I mean? Whatever you are and whatever you want to be, right? I think you just need to be aware of that, not to create overthinking and overconsumption of some of the information that's out there in terms of thinking about, is this imposter syndrome? Is it this? Is it that? And overanalyze, right? There are a lot of scenarios. Obviously, that's why we're here talking about this is a normal thing to happen. But I'm just playing the other voice on this to just really think about, don't fall into that trap and just say oh, because I'm female, all these things are happening, you know what I mean? And it could be, but it could also be because you're late. Or or incomplete or inaccurate, so don't chalk everything up to that. So start with what problem are you trying to solve, what are you trying to do, and go and work around that and make your merits of everything you deliver on. So that's my advice.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm thinking of in the context of meetings, and I will caveat this with saying I'm an excellent note taker and I excel at administrative duties, but that does not mean that it is my job as maybe the only woman in this meeting. So I think, what a loaded question. I think there's You can just see the fumes. Listen, right. If you're, let's just say context, you're in a meeting, no one's volunteering to take the notes, and you have a very important place in that meeting where you're there to contribute to something that's not note-taking. Do not volunteer for it.
Yes.
Like, don't. It's and it sounds so simple, but it's like, oh, everyone's awkwardly looking at you, and it's like, okay, you're such an excellent note-taker, and it's like, I'm here for another reason. I have full faith that someone else can be maybe as good as me, but that's fine. Like, I'm here for a reason, and that, just stick to it, because I think especially for people who are earlier on in their careers, you want to contribute so bad in a meeting, and so you default to being the note taker because it's like, oh, that's valuable, I can do it for sure. But again, if you want to start building the confidence to contribute in these meetings with whomever it is, just give it a moment. See if someone else will contribute, and then allow yourself to have the space to still contribute in a different way and push yourself in that uncomfortable zone just to prove to yourself and build that self-confidence, because the easy thing is to just volunteer for the job of note-taking, but I believe in you. You have other things to contribute that is not just that. And so it's just sticking to your guns in those moments. And if someone asks you, especially, and says, hey, Kate, why don't you want to do it? No, I'm here for another reason. Just be very firm about it, because that's just the way it's going to work at some point. So.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. I'll chime in with the short answer is it plays a huge role. I think when I think about my own career, one of the things I notice is the difference in language in the way that we talk about men and women, particularly in leadership positions. You think about, he's so smart, he's so ambitious, he's so visionary, and the word so is used, whereas in women we flip that and we use the word too, as in too much. So she's too ambitious, she's too aggressive, she's too assertive, she's to whatever. So what I always try to do is whenever we have generalizations like that, or we use the words to or so, call it out, guys. Like, when you see it, call it out. That's the only way we educate each other, and we make each other more comfortable with having these conversations. One of my least favorite generalizations of women is that we're too emotional. And that because we're too emotional, we're not capable of making data-driven decisions. And that's clearly not true, certainly not true for myself, and not true for actually the vast majority of women that I know. But it's certainly a stereotype that when you get in a big room full of a lot of older white men, that tends to come up as, oh, that was to this or to that. And I encourage you, when you see that, challenge it. What do you mean by too much? And really dig into what's actually behind that, rather than just a generalization. Awesome. Well, that was the question to end all questions. So anybody want to try to top that one? Right here in the middle. You want to turn around and try to catch it? It's way more fun that way. Oh.
First of all, thank you very much for this event. And my question is not directly connected with an imposter syndrome. It's most, I would like to take an opportunity, a chance to ask, for those ladies who are entrepreneurs, is there anything you wish you knew at the very beginning of your journey as an entrepreneur?
I was about to say, Susie King. Yeah.
Is this still on?
Yeah.
What I did here. So it's interesting, right? Because I reflect back on being an entrepreneur, and I grew up in corporate, right? And then went to tech, right? So you get a lot of like grounding. I've had a lot of teams. So like for me, I'd always been running my own agenda, right? Like this was like a big thing. And like when I think about the best advice I got, and I started about 1.5 years ago, was from one of my friends that I worked with, and he said to me, he said, Susie, could you not make any money for the next year? And I said, well, I could. It's like, I don't really want to do that, right? But he said, but could you? And I was like, I could. And he's like, then you can go for it. You can go for it. Go be an entrepreneur. And at the time I thought, okay, like it's a good question. But as time moves on, because when you're an entrepreneur, and a lot of you that are entrepreneurs here know this, like it's not linear like it was. I don't have a salary anymore that was like, whatever with deductions every month, right? Forever, on end. And, having bonus season, right? So, I was saying to someone today, like, you become, I always say, everybody's like, I'm a founder. I was like, I'm a vendor. I was like, I'm on everyone else's schedule, right? And you don't know, when things will happen. So like I could make $1 this month, then next month I could make $1 million. You know what I mean? Like it depends on when people need things and when you can provide them. Anyways, because of this though, you can get imposter syndrome actually, like in the down months, because you're not sure and you don't know. Like I don't know what next quarter is going to look like, or a quarter after that, and like everything's cyclical. So I think having the financial freedom to do this is very important, and to remind yourself, I have financial freedom to actually think this through, or I have a plan and a path to get there. So I think that was the very best advice that I got. It was, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Full disclosure, I'm not an entrepreneur, but I do work with a lot of entrepreneurs. So take a crack at that. I think I would say two things. One is solve a real problem. Like, be really thorough and diligent in your validation. Make sure that you're solving something that really needs to be solved. And find your community. There are tons and tons and tons of support out there. So figure out the ones that work for you and work those connections, right? Because there's lots of people out there that will mentor you, that will support you. It can be a very lonely journey. So take advantage of those that are willing to reach out a hand and support you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Who's that? Nailed it.
Good throw. Thanks for being here. Thanks for doing the panel. Really appreciate it. I think my question is around self-advocacy. So whether in the workplace or whether with a business, what's your relationship like with self-advocacy, and how has that affected your imposter syndrome journey?
It's another great question.
I'll take a stab at it. You know you the best more than anyone else. You know what you're really good at, and you know what your weaknesses are. And honestly, nobody else can advocate for you as well as you can do for yourself. So self-advocacy plays a significant role, but it doesn't happen overnight. You have to start somewhere small, somewhere in a comfortable setting, and then work your way up. At least that's what's worked for me, in that you have to absolutely be your cheerleader. You have to be your champion. But the way it will become comfortable is we are worst at introducing ourselves and speaking our own good qualities and our strengths, right? So we did this exercise at work where we were paired with people, and I had to talk about all the great things about you, Susie, and you would talk about me. And I found out things about myself, not only from my perspective, but also from the other person's perspective. So you have to be your self-advocate for sure, but it's also great to have a community or have buddies you can sort of think about, like, what does it mean from your perspective? What am I doing well? What am I not doing well? And then work on it. And then you just get better and better with it, with every opportunity.
I would love to pile on to this. It's a really good question. I talk about this a lot, like in managing careers. I think for the self-advocacy, like, you need to think about, what do you want to be known for? Be ready. Right? Like, have a list of words, of things that you want to be known for. Have a list of things that you want to do written down. And then, like, if you're in a work environment, with your boss, tell them. You know what I mean? Because I always say, like, leaders are not, like, psychic. They're not mind readers. Yeah, so sometimes, like, I see people get so frustrated. They'll be like, why is this happening? And, like, why does nobody know this? And this should be happening or that should be happening. But at the same time, nobody knows that. You didn't tell your leader. So, yeah, so I would say be prepared, and then just drop, like, breadcrumbs all the time when you're talking, so that people know that, oh, I'd love to be on that project, right? I'd like to learn, like, I do this. I'm like, hey, this year is going to be Susie AI year. I throw that out there, and then, I start going, like, Alfremy is around here somewhere. He invited me to an AI event with AI founders. I'm like, yes. And now I'm going to another one because I put it out there, right? And then people know that, hey, Susie's interested in that, right? So that's a lot about your self-advocacy, right? Telling people what you want and what you do. You can just drop crumbs.
I will echo that. We're really good at the, pass-ons today. I think it was Carla Harris's, like, really famous speech she did where she mentioned, similar to what Susie said, like, almost all decisions about your career will be done in rooms that you are not in. So, like, promotions, raises, if you got the job in an interview, like, you are not in those rooms. And so personally, like, I am too much of a control freak to let my fate be in the hands fully of other people. So it is so important, like, self-advocacy, you say if you're interviewing for a job, I want this job. This is the reason why. Like, be very clear, because even when it's so obvious in terms of like the situation you're in, sometimes people just need to hear it from you. If you're talking about that promotion or that project you want to be on, people will typically think of the person that has actually said it out loud versus being like, oh, I wonder if Kate actually wants to do this, or, and so for me, like, it is so important to just, at any moment that is appropriate for you to share with whoever it is you're talking to, just say it. It's like, what's the worst that could happen? Like, it's not the right time or not a good fit, but at least they know. So yeah, self-advocacy is extremely important, and it's kind of one of those things that you just got to start doing and it becomes more comfortable. It's not like you kind of build it up over time. I think you just have to start doing it, and more it'll just seem like a normal part of your conversation every day, and it's a little bit less uncomfortable, and it actually becomes more of like, oh no, I deserve to be able to say this. I've earned the right to be able to share why I feel like I am the best fit for this, and that'll be a good day.
Just to double back, like, I would say that what you said is so important to always do it. Because one of the biggest fails I see, like in just bigger organizations, especially because I've been in a lot of rotational programs, is that people wait till they're ready to move. And then the second they're ready to move, they're like, okay, gotta move. It's now. And then they blast out to every single person they know, every mentor, every person they've ever worked with, and they're like, hey, I wanna move. I'm ready to go. And everybody's like, what? Like, the timing's not ready. It's like, it drops like a bomb, and it doesn't look good, it doesn't feel good, and it's not gonna result in a positive momentum. So you have to start when you're not in desperate state, right? And people can just hear it as a normal course of conversation, right? So you don't want it to look like so urgent. And also you feel like negative that way too, yourself. So anyways, just a piece of advice, because when you're saying that, it's like, yes, that is perfect advice.
I think the theme is it's a muscle. Self-advocacy is a muscle. You have to use it. I'll share a bit of a recent story for me. So I'm a 20-year marketing professional. I've written probably hundreds of biographies for people over my career. Recently, I was asked to write a long-form biography for myself, and oh boy, did I struggle. I spent a whole weekend. I wrote 9 versions of it. I crumpled them all up, digitally, of course, and tossed them. I was like, these are all terrible. Called her another great friend who's a writer, and I said, can you write my bio for me? And she looked at me like, no. Are you crazy? She's like, you do this all the time. She's like, send me what you wrote. So I sent her a version, pulled it out of the recycle bin and sent it to her. She's like, this is really great. Like, I would think that, you should just send this. And I looked at it and I thought about it, and I looked at it again and I thought about it. And on reflecting on that, you're like, talking about yourself can be really, really uncomfortable. And I don't know where we all learn that, particularly as women, that, tooting your own horn is not a good thing. Like, we shouldn't do that. We should be ashamed of doing that. We shouldn't be ashamed of it. We actually need to do it. We need to get used to doing it. So even as somebody who does this all the time, I was like, ew, this is really uncomfortable. So I think just encouraging yourself it's okay to be uncomfortable during that process, and do it often. You get better at it, and it just becomes part of the way that you communicate with your teams and your leaders. Great question.
Thank you.
Who's next?
Trust me.
Oh, there's a couple at the back. That's a big throw. Perfect.
Hi. Thanks for having me. I just wanted to ask how to stop or minimize the internet from feeding your imposter syndrome, because you can't stay off the internet. And if you spend 10 minutes on the internet, you feel like you've achieved nothing in life until yet.
Yeah.
So
I think I missed the very
that?
middle of the question, but I think it's around the idea of comparison, right? And comparing yourself to others, or did I miss it? Okay. Oh.
Your question was basically how do you avoid imposter syndrome when you compare yourself to what you see on the internet?
Yes. So when you go scroll Instagram for 10 minutes, and you're like, I have achieved nothing compared to all these people on the internet, right?
I mean, I think the short answer is stay off Twitter.
That?
But yeah.
Monitor your time on the internet and stay off social media.
Yeah, I mean, I work in marketing, so telling people to stay off social media. Visit the AC social media every day, all the time. But yes, comparison is the thief of joy. That's the saying, right? And I think there's a really good reason that is the saying. It's because you're looking at the highlights reel of somebody. You're looking at somebody's bio, not all the stuff they messed up to get there. So I think just keeping things in context. And that goes back to the role of mentorship and network. Meet real people who are willing to talk to you about their real journey, not the version they want you to know on the internet, because that's the highlight reel, that's the resume, that's the hey, please hire me, I'm awesome. It's not the whole story, and just keeping that in mind that when you visit the AC social media page, hopefully you'll see more full journeys of people's experience as entrepreneurs and get a sense that it is challenging. There's ups and downs. It's not linear. It's a journey.
So, I mean, internet, again, that's pretty broad, right? Like, so even if I were to just put myself out there, even a LinkedIn page, I go on LinkedIn, there's FOMO sometimes. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much happening. I cannot be at all those events. I cannot be everywhere. Yeah. I'm a mother, I'm a wife, like you have different roles that you're playing. So there is FOMO in some aspects. But then there is also, what is it that I can actually learn from somebody else? So you have to monitor. Anything in small portions is better. We all know that. So usually when I'm out there, when I'm seeing somebody's success, I try to see what's my inspiration from that. What's my learning from that? I don't want to be exactly what they are. Again, to your point, their journey may have been completely different. They may have had different opportunities than I have or would ever have. So I just look at what is it that I can learn from how they dealt with a particular thing, or what is it that they did, if to the extent I have the benefit of that information. So more so making it a positive experience. But I just, 2 days ago, I learned, maybe all of you know this already, apparently scrolling is equivalent to taking drugs. And I was shocked. I'm like, no, I got to stay off in social media. But hopefully that helps in a little way.
I'll share a story just about like comparing yourself to others, whether it's on the internet or not. So when I had my first internship, I got a job in Australia. I was, managed to go between my 3rd and 4th year of university to work for this boutique consulting firm in Sydney. And we were supporting like the Australian Stock Exchange, okay? At this time, I was a kid that was in business school. My parents, are immigrants to Canada. I didn't have a business vocabulary, right? Like I didn't work in a bank. I worked in like farm work. I worked in a grocery store. I did different jobs, right? So then you can imagine putting me in this space. I barely knew what a stock exchange was, right? Like honestly, I was like, what are we doing? And I remember I talked to the partner there, and I said, his name was Frank, and I was like, Frank, I don't know, like, how do I get comfortable doing this? Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I honestly had no idea what I was doing. Like, I could tell you stories offline, but of really funny things. But and Frank looked at me. He's like, Susie, you have to remember. He's like, every single person puts their pants on one leg at a time. And I don't know why, but I was like, he's right. I was like, Frank is right. Everybody does. Everybody starts somewhere. Yeah? We're all going to we start from here and go forward, right? When you meet someone, you start from 0 and move forward, right? So you can compare yourself to everybody, but everybody always started from somewhere, right? So I don't know. For what it's worth, that one helped me when I thought about Frank, and I still sometimes think about this. Right? And I was like, he's right, man. Frank is right, one leg at a time.
Radhika, your story reminded me of something. Olivia is here somewhere. Olivia is our wonderful operations manager. Hi, Olivia. She shares a great stat with us when we're hiring. That is 90% of resumes contain some information which is embellished in some way, which is a really polite way to say is BS. So when you're looking at people and you're comparing online, just keep in mind that a lot of that is fake. It's not real anyway. So that was always, first of all, 90% shocked me. I don't know anybody else. I was like, holy moly, that's terrifying. But yeah, the version of yourself, which is you at your best, is you're comparing it to something that doesn't really exist anyway. So Megan has given me the one more question sign.
Safe pass. Thank you so much, ladies, for your insight so far. Woo! I'm wondering how to help curb imposter syndrome when preparing for conversations around money, raises, promotions, etc. And speaking of leaving a breadcrumb trail, my boss is sitting 2 chairs next to me. So thanks for that.
Well, I don't even think we need to answer that question. I think that was it. That's all you had to do. You nailed self-advocacy. You nailed bravery. You're officially now in the middle, has conquered imposter syndrome section.
I'm a big fan of, I have a folder on my email that's testimonials, and every time I get like a nice email from someone or a kudos or I did a big project, I throw it in there. And it's it's a nice atta-girl when you're having a bad day, but it's also a good tool when you're gonna go have a conversation with somebody sitting 2 chairs away from you and say, hey person, I'm really awesome, and here's why I deserve this next step in my career. But I think the breadcrumb piece is really important, right? Like you don't go out of the blue and say, I'm ready. To Susie's point, you need to seed that conversation early and be open about it and talk about, this is my goal. How do I get there? What does that look like for you? Where are the gaps? What are the expectations? Where am I here? Where am I now? And what does next look like? So that you're setting yourself up for success and really clear on how you might get there.
For thinking about it on the flip side, like in dealing with your imposter syndrome, like kind of separate from your relationship with your boss, like I think it's so important with your friends, like close friends, like talk about how much money you make. Like I don't know, I mean I do know, like I understand where this taboo comes from in terms of talking about how much each other makes, and it's not always the most appropriate thing to bring up in someone you just met, but with your friends, the times that I've thought to myself, like, wow, I'm so lucky, I make this much money, and it's like, no, Kate, you earned that. Sometimes you just need a pal to tell you, that you deserve whatever you're making. And so I think normalizing these conversations within the close circles of your friends is so important to kind of curb the imposter syndrome that you don't deserve the raise or you don't deserve to earn whatever you're making. And it's always just important to know that you're getting paid fairly wherever you work. And so I think from a personal level, like I think we just, as women, like we just need to be more comfortable, because for some reason men like talk about it all the time, but for women it's like very uncomfortable, even with our partners or whatever the case. Like, so I think it should be more normalized, and it's not a way of bragging or anything like that. It's really like, hey, what's the market? We all know that we're typically underpaid, so it's probably helpful to know what everyone else is making around us, especially people in the same types of jobs, in the same industry. Like, people want to be paid fairly in whatever circumstance, and it's the only way that we can figure that out is if we're talking to each other about it. And so I think it's just something, just normalize it with your friends. Maybe not everyone, but like your close friends, and make it more comfortable in those kinds of situations.
That's great. This is my soapbox. The pay transparency is my soapbox, the hill I will die on. I was like, if you're a leader and you're looking for something you can do to support your female staff members, post pay bands for all of your jobs. Make it transparent to everyone within the organization, what they're being paid in comparison to their peers. Give them a way to see what the future looks like for them. I think it's the single most important thing you can do to support your women. I think Megan's given me the you're done, we're cut. That being said, you don't have to leave here right away. We're here, we're hanging out. I think there's still some refreshments in the other room. Certainly members of the AC team will be here for a little while. You're welcome to stay connected and to network. Just want to take a moment to thank you guys again for your wonderful insights. Thank you so much for participating. I really enjoyed chatting with you. Thanks again to the good folks from Gallings WLG for sponsoring tonight. We really appreciate your support.
Thank you so much.
Shortly here, the QR code for the headshot contest will be back up on the screen. Make sure before you leave, you scan that, put your information in, and then 5 of you will get a message from Megan tomorrow that you've won some free headshots. Amazing. Thanks, guys. See you next time.